My name is Safi, and I never imagined that standing up for myself would turn my life into a disaster story whispered around the neighborhood like a ghost tale. People think revenge is loud, messy, and violent, but that's not true. Sometimes revenge is quiet, patient, and delivered by the hands of fate. And fate, I learned, doesn't forget. It waits. It watches. Then it strikes. It all started with a letter. A plain white envelope taped to my gate. No greeting, no respect, just a demand. According to the HOA, I owed 2 years of unpaid fees, a debt big enough for them to threaten action. I stared at the figure they claimed I owed and felt my pulse drum in my ears. The numbers were wrong, ridiculously wrong. It was money I never agreed to pay. They had changed policy without approval, charged illegal fines, and used intimidation to silence homeowners. But I wasn't like the others. I wouldn't be bullied. Not over money, not over pride, and certainly not over land that had belonged to my family long before the HOA even existed. My dam, built by my grandfather, reinforced by my father, maintained by me, was the heart of our land. It watered our fields, powered a generator, protected the lower valleys from seasonal floods. It wasn't just property. It was heritage. It was identity, and they wanted to control it. When I walked into the HOA meeting to dispute the charges, every pair of eyes turned toward me with something between annoyance and hostility. The HOA president, a man named Caldwell, stood with a smile polished like a rusty blade. "Mr. Safi," he said, voice dripping authority, "if you want to continue receiving the benefits of this community, you'll need to cooperate." I clenched my jaw. Benefits? Like you trespassing, sending threats, and now trying to seize what's mine. He leaned forward, hands clasped, eyes shining with power. "We aren't seizing anything, we're enforcing order." That was the moment I knew this wasn't about fees. It was about contro. They wanted to break me in front of everyone so the rest of the neighborhood would stay scared. But I didn't break. I walked out of that room with every intention of fighting legally. I didn't know that they had already made their choice, and that choice was destruction. 3 days later, I woke up to the sound of engines. Heavy, mechanical, violent. I ran outside and saw bulldozers at the base of the dam. Giant metal beasts against concrete. HOA officers stood around like vultures, clipboards in hand, pretending this was lawful. Caldwell made sure I saw him. "Last chance, Safi. Pay the fees." "You can't do this," I growled. "Actually," he replied, tapping a stack of papers. "We already have," I shouted, pleaded. I demanded a court order. They ignored every word. The first strike of the bulldozer shook the earth itself. The sound of metal crushing stone felt like bones breaking. The dam groaned, cracked, split, and then collapsed. Water exploded through the breach like a beast freed from chains. It rushed downhill, wild and uncontrollable, tearing through soil, uprooting trees, and swallowing everything in its path. The HOA officers scrambled back, slipping in mud, shocked by the very disaster they created. Caldwell, for the first time, looked uncertain, maybe even afraid. That night, the town was restless. The wind shrieked like something injured. The air tasted like storm. Dark clouds gathered as if summoned by the dam's destruction. Rain fell in sheets, and the broken waterway turned into a monstrous current. Without the dam's control gates, there was no regulation, no safety, no barrier. The river grew, then swelled, then rose like a tidal wave waiting for a signal, and nature gave it one. At 2:14 a.m., the flood surged. It slammed into the lower neighborhoods with a roar, smashing past fences, ripping open garages, dragging cars like toys. People screamed, doors flew open, alarms echoed through the night. Caldwell's house was among the first hit. Water burst through his windows, flipped his furniture, dragged his possessions into the dark. He climbed onto his roof, drenched and shaking, looking down at the ruin. He searched for someone to blame, but there was no one left to yell at. No bulldozer to order, no clipboard to wave, no audience to intimidate. The power he cherished dissolved like paper in the flood. I stood safely uphill, where the land remained dry and untouched. I watched the water surge through their streets, not with satisfaction, but with something heavier, something bitter. They destroyed what was mine out of greed. The flood destroyed what was theirs out of consequence. Not revenge, not violence, just balance. That's the thing people don't understand. When you wound something that protects, it stops protecting. They didn't just break a dam. They broke the thing that held the danger back. They thought I was the threat. They were wrong. When the sun rose the next morning, the neighborhood looked like a battlefield. Houses half submerged, cars stacked like debris, trees uprooted, fences gone. The HOA office, the symbol of their authority, was gone. Flattened, papers washed into the mud. Caldwell found me, soaking wet, shivering, humiliated. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He whispered, "You knew this would happen." I shook my head. "No," I replied quietly. "But you should have." He stared at the ruin behind him. "We were just doing our job." I looked him in the eye. Then nature just did its job too. The investigation that followed was brutal. The HOA was exposed for illegal enforcement, falsified documents, and unauthorized demolition. Members resigned. Others were arrested. Caldwell disappeared from public view. His legacy washed away like everything else he owned. As for me, I rebuilt. Not the dam, not immediately, but hope, stability, life. The land healed slowly, like a scar knitting across skin. Today, people come to me for advice not out of fear, but out of respect. They say the flood changed the town. But it didn't. The flood revealed the truth. That power isn't in authority. Power isn't in threats. Power is in what you protect and what you're willing to lose. Sometimes I stand at the broken dam, staring at the water that still flows freely, still wild, still dangerous. And I think about the day it all fell apart. I remember the sound of concrete breaking, the roar of the flood, the look in Caldwell's eyes when he realized the storm he unleashed wasn't mine. It was his. They destroyed what was mine for control. The flood destroyed what they owned for justice. I never needed revenge. I never touched a weapon. I never fought back. I didn't have to, because some punishments don't come from people. They come from the world itself. And the world never misses.